America from the Civil War on in under 5 minutes. But I'm pretty sure it's way over 5 minutes.
Just don't tell Mr. Murphy
The war started around the time of the election of Abraham Lincoln. America was divided into the North, which was known as the Union, and the South, which was known as the Confederates. It ended with the Union victory at the Appomattox Courthouse. The United States entered an era of Reconstruction in the South. The 13th Amendment abolished slavery. On April 4th, 1865, President Lincoln was assassinated by John Wilkes Booth, and Andrew Johnson was immediately sworn into presidency. He thought that each state should have its own government, and soon every southern state had passed black codes. The Civil Rights Act of 1866 was put in place, and the 14th Amendment was created to support it. Johnson faced impeachment, and Ulysses S. Grant was then elected president. The 15th Amendment gave African American men the right to vote, and segregation became a bigger problem. The Jim Crow laws were created. In the case Plessy v. Ferguson, it was said that the facilities would be separate but equal in segregation. People settling in the new frontiers and more boom towns were being seen with the growing mining industry. Americans were soon settling on Indian land, and treaties creating reservations soon followed. In 1862, Congress passed the Homestead and Morrill Acts for U.S. farmers. The Bessemer process, monopolies, and assembly lines all made bigger, more efficient business. Thomas Edison created electricity, and Alexander Graham Bell put a patent on his invention of the telephone. More immigrants from Europe and Asia began coming to America. The 19th Amendment gave women the right to vote. Western European nations began imperialism, and the U.S. began building the Panama Canal in 1904. Roosevelt was then elected president. World War I began with a hostility between European nations. There were the Central Powers and the Allied Powers. The war ended with the Germans agreeing to a truce and armistice. The Treaty of Versailles was rejected with the League of Nations, and the League of Nations was created. On Tuesday, October 29, 1929, the stock market crashed, unemployment skyrocketed. Franklin D. Roosevelt was elected president in 1932. He had the New Deal and was eventually able to bring America out of the Great Depression. World War II began with the rise of totalism. Germany's Adolf Hitler gained power, and his plan was to turn Germany into a world power. Hitler's army was known as the Nazis. Japan invaded China, and the United States protested the invasion. Italy joined the Axis powers, and Britain and France joined the Allied powers. Japan bombed a U.S. naval fleet stationed in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, on December 7, 1941. Hitler started the Holocaust, which was an act of genocide, and the war ended with the U.S. dropping a bomb on Japan, which was known as the Manhattan Project. After the war, the Yalta Conference took place, and the Nazis went on trial. When Roosevelt died, Henry S. Truman became president, and Americans were scared of a nuclear attack, and NASA was created in 1958. Korea was divided at the 38th parallel. North Korea invaded the South. Truman promised to support the South, and so he sent U.S. troops over to South Korea. Neither side was able to win the war. The hydrogen bomb was created in the arms race, and Sputnik was sent into space. Dwight D. Eisenhower took office. Little Rock 9 went to Central High School, and the Montgomery bus boycott began when Rosa Parks was arrested. JFK was elected president in 1960, and a March on Washington occurred in civil rights. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 were both created. Cesar Chavez fought for the rights of Hispanic Americans. The Equal Rights Act amendment outlawed gender-based discrimination. East Berlin was part of the communist East Germany, and West Berlin belonged to the democratic West Germany. When the people fled to the west, Berlin was constructed. The Berlin Wall was constructed. Kennedy promised to defend West Berlin. The Soviets were installing nuclear weapons in Cuba, and this was known as the Cuban Missile Crisis. Americans Neil Armstrong and Edwin Aldrin were the first men to walk on the moon. Ho Chi Minh was a leading Vietnamese nationalist. Americans supported the South Vietnam. The Tonkin Gulf Resolution was established, and the war ended when South Vietnamese forces captured Saigon. In 1972, 5 men were arrested for breaking into the National Democratic Committee's office at the Watergate Hotel. Nixon was directly tied to the burglary and resigned. Gerald Ford was then president. On April 22, 1970, America celebrated its first Earth Day. Jimmy Carter was elected president in 1976. A U.S. embassy was attacked in Tehran, taking 90 American hostages, and Jimmy Carter was elected president on January 20, 1981, the hostages were released, and this was the same day as President Reagan's inauguration. So be thankful for the freedom that you're given, because many Americans have died and fought for it.